Men are more easily governed through their vices than through their virtues. Napoleon Bonaparte, they tell you to listen to your gut, trust your intuition, that your feelings will warn you when someone's trying to pull a fast one. That's a comforting lie. Your gut reacts to patterns, not to hidden agendas. It flags the familiar, not the subtle manipulation designed to bypass your conscious defenses. Real agendas are cloaked, layered, and presented with a smile. They don't trigger alarms, they lull you into complacency. We're not here to reinforce feel-good platitudes. We're here to dissect the unspoken, to expose the architecture of deception. Because in every interaction, someone is playing the game and they're playing to win. The only question is, are you even aware the game is being played? Are you a pawn, or are you the one moving the pieces? Human beings are wired for connection, for cooperation. That's the biological imperative. But evolution is a ruthless editor. It also favors those who can exploit the system, those who can gain advantage by subtly bending the rules. The ability to mask intent, to project an image of trustworthiness while harboring ulterior motives, is a deeply ingrained survival strategy. It's not about being inherently evil. It's about maximizing personal gain within a complex social ecosystem. Think of it as a form of social camouflage, a way to navigate a landscape where resources are scarce and competition is constant. Those who wear the most convincing masks often thrive, while those who blindly trust are left vulnerable. The human brain is a master of rationalization. It can justify almost any action, no matter how self-serving, with a veneer of logic and morality. This allows individuals to pursue hidden agendas without experiencing debilitating cognitive dissonance. They genuinely believe they are acting in a justified manner, even when their actions are clearly detrimental to others. This self-deception is crucial because it removes the telltale signs of guilt or discomfort that might otherwise betray their true intentions. They can look you in the eye, shake your hand, and assure you of their sincerity, all while meticulously advancing their own hidden objectives. The more convinced they are of their own righteousness, the more convincing they become. Hidden agendas often operate on the principle of reciprocity. They exploit our innate desire to return favors, to maintain a sense of balance in our relationships. Someone might offer unsolicited help, seemingly out of pure altruism, but with the unspoken expectation of future repayment. This creates a subtle debt, a sense of obligation that can be leveraged later on. The recipient, feeling indebted, becomes more susceptible to influence and less likely to question the true motives behind the initial act of kindness. This is a classic manipulation tactic, disguised as a simple act of goodwill. Furthermore, hidden agendas thrive in environments where information is asymmetrical. The person with the hidden agenda possesses knowledge that you lack, and they use this disparity to their advantage. They might selectively withhold information, distort facts, or present a carefully curated narrative designed to steer you in a specific direction. This information control creates a power imbalance, allowing them to manipulate your perceptions and influence your decisions without your conscious awareness. The key is to identify the gaps in the information they provide, and to actively seek out alternative perspectives to uncover the full picture. Emotional manipulation is a cornerstone of hidden agendas. By playing on your emotions, someone can bypass your rational defenses and gain control over your behavior. They might use guilt, shame, fear, or flattery to influence your decisions, appealing to your vulnerabilities rather than engaging with your intellect. For example, someone might use guilt-tripping to pressure you into doing something you don't want to do, or they might use flattery to inflate your ego and make you more receptive to their suggestions. Recognizing these emotional ploys is essential for protecting yourself from manipulation. The most effective hidden agendas are often those that align with your own desires or beliefs. Someone might subtly frame their objectives in a way that resonates with your values, making it seem as though you are both working towards the same goal. This creates a sense of shared purpose, masking the underlying self-interest that is driving their actions. By appealing to your ego, your aspirations, or your sense of justice, they can gain your trust and cooperation, even when their true agenda is diametrically opposed to your best interests. The closer the alignment appears, the more difficult it becomes to detect the underlying manipulation. Detecting hidden agendas requires a shift in mindset. It demands a willingness to question assumptions, to challenge conventional wisdom, and to see beyond the surface level. It's about cultivating a healthy dose of skepticism and developing the ability to analyze situations from multiple perspectives. This is not about becoming paranoid or distrustful of everyone you meet, but rather about developing a more nuanced understanding of human behavior and the subtle ways in which people attempt to influence one another. Ultimately, detecting hidden agendas is about pattern recognition. It's about identifying recurring behavioral patterns, inconsistencies in communication, and discrepancies between words and actions. It's about paying attention to the subtle cues that betray underlying motives, the microexpressions, the changes in tone, the evasive answers. It's about developing a finely tuned sense of observation and the ability to connect seemingly disparate pieces of information to form a coherent picture. This is not a skill that can be learned overnight, but it is a skill that can be developed through practice and conscious effort. The world is not always as it seems. People are not always as they present themselves. Hidden agendas are a reality of human interaction, a constant undercurrent that shapes our relationships and influences our decisions. By understanding the psychology behind these agendas, by learning to recognize the tactics used to conceal them, and by cultivating a healthy dose of skepticism, you can protect yourself from manipulation and navigate the social landscape with greater awareness and control. The first step is acknowledging that the game exists. The next is learning to play it with your eyes wide open. Consider this scenario. You're at a networking event surrounded by ambitious professionals eager to make connections. A man, let's call him Mark, approaches you. He exudes confidence, a practiced smile plastered across his face, and launches into a seemingly genuine conversation about your career aspirations. He listens intently, nodding at all the right moments, offering words of encouragement and shared experiences that mirror your own. He subtly name-drops influential figures in your industry, casually mentioning past collaborations and hinting at future opportunities. He paints a picture of himself as a successful, well-connected individual, eager to help a promising talent like yourself. He offers to connect you with someone he knows, someone who could potentially open doors to your dream job. Sounds like a golden opportunity, right? A chance encounter with a generous mentor willing to invest in your future. But beneath the surface of this seemingly benevolent interaction lies a hidden agenda. Mark isn't genuinely interested in helping you achieve your goals. His motives are far more self-serving. He is leveraging your ambition for his own personal gain. He is attempting to establish a connection with you, not out of altruism, but out of a desire to enhance his own social capital. He believes that by associating himself with promising individuals like yourself, he can elevate his own status and expand his sphere of influence. Your success, in his eyes, becomes a reflection of his own. He's not interested in your well-being. He's interested in the reflected glory. The connection he offers is not a selfless act of generosity. It is a calculated move designed to create a sense of obligation, a subtle form of social leverage that he can exploit later. Perhaps he needs a favor down the line, a connection to someone in your network, or simply wants to boast about his ability to influence your career trajectory. His initial charm and apparent helpfulness serve as a smokescreen, obscuring his true intentions. He is playing a game of manipulation, using flattery and false promises to ingratiate himself with you and exploit your aspirations. Detecting this hidden agenda requires a keen awareness of the subtle cues and inconsistencies in his behavior. Notice the overly rehearsed nature of his compliments, the way his eyes seem to scan the room even as he's supposedly listening intently to your story. Pay attention to the vagueness of his offers, the lack of concrete details about the connection he promises to make. Observe how he subtly steers the conversation towards his own accomplishments and connections, always finding a way to insert himself into the narrative. Most importantly, trust your gut. If something feels off, if his behavior seems too calculated or insincere, it likely is. Don't be blinded by the allure of opportunity or the flattery of his words. Step back, analyze the situation objectively, and consider the possibility that his motives are not as pure as they seem. This scenario is a microcosm of the social dynamics that play out every day in workplaces, social gatherings, and even personal relationships. People often have ulterior motives, hidden agendas that drive their behavior and shape their interactions. Learning to recognize these agendas is essential for protecting yourself from manipulation and navigating the complex landscape of human relationships. It's about seeing beyond the surface, questioning the motives behind seemingly selfless acts, and understanding that not everyone has your best interests at heart. It's about developing a critical eye, a discerning mind, and the courage to trust your intuition, even when it contradicts the seemingly positive signals you are receiving. It is about understanding that charisma can be a mask, and that true intentions are often concealed beneath layers of charm and calculated behavior. The key is to remain vigilant, to analyze every interaction with a degree of skepticism, and to prioritize your own well-being above the fleeting allure of false promises and manipulative tactics. Recognizing these patterns is not about cynicism, but about self-preservation. The trap is sprung when you ignore the subtle inconsistencies, the unspoken pressures that steer you toward a predetermined outcome. It's the slow creep of obligation, the incremental compromises that erode your boundaries until you find yourself cornered, indebted, and exploited. Often, the most effective hidden agendas are disguised as genuine offers of help, mentorship, or partnership. The manipulator invests time and energy into building rapport, establishing a sense of trust and reciprocity. They might offer you a seemingly invaluable opportunity, a chance to advance your career, expand your network, or achieve a personal goal. But beneath the surface of this generosity lies a calculated motive, a desire to leverage your skills, connections, or resources for their own benefit. The trap tightens when you become emotionally invested in the outcome, when you allow your desire for approval or success to cloud your judgment. The manipulator preys on your vulnerabilities, exploiting your insecurities and feeding your ego. They might use flattery, guilt, or fear to influence your decisions, subtly nudging you towards actions that serve their agenda. The weak fall prey because they prioritize short-term gains over long-term consequences. They are blinded by the immediate gratification of a compliment, the allure of a quick win, or the fear of disappointing someone they admire. They fail to recognize that true relationships are built on mutual respect and genuine reciprocity, not on manipulation and hidden agendas. The weak also tend to underestimate their own value, constantly seeking external validation and failing to trust their own instincts. They are easily swayed by the opinions of others, especially those in positions of authority or influence. They lack the confidence to assert their own needs and boundaries, allowing themselves to be taken advantage of without protest. This lack of self-awareness makes them prime targets for manipulators, who can easily exploit their insecurities and control their behavior. The crucial failing is the inability to detach and analyze the situation objectively. When you are emotionally invested, it becomes difficult to see the warning signs, the red flags that indicate a hidden agenda. You are more likely to rationalize questionable behavior, to dismiss your intuition, and to convince yourself that everything is fine, even when deep down you know it isn't. This self-deception is a powerful tool in the hands of the manipulator, who can use it to keep you trapped in their web of deceit. They will reinforce your insecurities, amplify your fears, and paint a picture of the world that justifies their manipulative tactics. They will make you believe that you are lucky to have them, that no one else would offer you the same opportunities, and that you would be foolish to walk away. Ultimately, the trap is not about external forces, but about internal weaknesses. It is about the failure to recognize your own value, the inability to trust your intuition, and the willingness to compromise your principles for short-term gains. To avoid falling victim to hidden agendas, you must cultivate self-awareness, develop strong boundaries, and learn to prioritize your own well-being above the approval of others. You must learn to see through the masks that people wear, to question their motives, and to trust your gut, even when it tells you something you don't want to hear. It requires a willingness to walk away from situations that feel uncomfortable or exploitative, even if it means sacrificing a potential opportunity or disappointing someone you admire. The truly Machiavellian approach to detecting hidden agendas requires a shift in perspective, a deliberate detachment from emotional entanglement. You must learn to analyze social interactions with the cold precision of a strategist, recognizing that every gesture, every word, and every perceived act of kindness could be a calculated move in a larger game. This doesn't mean becoming paranoid or cynical, but rather adopting a heightened sense of awareness, a constant questioning of motives, and a willingness to consider the possibility that things are not always as they seem. To master this, you must first understand that hidden agendas are often cloaked in the guise of altruism, presented as acts of generosity or selflessness. The manipulator understands that people are more likely to trust those who appear to be acting in their best interests, and they will exploit this vulnerability by offering help, support, or favors that seem too good to be true. The key is to look beyond the surface and consider the potential return on investment for the person offering the assistance. Ask yourself, what do they stand to gain from this? What are the potential strings attached? What unspoken expectations might they have? Often, the true agenda is not immediately apparent, but rather a long-term play, a subtle accumulation of influence and leverage that can be cashed in at a later date. The Machiavellian observer also recognizes the power of information asymmetry. The person with more information has a distinct advantage in any social interaction. Therefore, manipulators will often seek to control the flow of information, withholding critical details, spreading misinformation, or creating confusion to maintain the upper hand. They may use tactics such as gaslighting, denial, and blame shifting to distort your perception of reality and make you question your own sanity. To counter this, you must actively seek out independent sources of information, verify claims, and be wary of anyone who tries to control what you see and hear. Cultivate a network of trusted advisors who can provide objective feedback and challenge your assumptions. Be especially skeptical of information that confirms your existing biases, as this is often the most easily manipulated. Furthermore, the Machiavellian mind understands the importance of emotional manipulation. People are often driven by their emotions, and a skilled manipulator can exploit these vulnerabilities to influence their behavior. They may use tactics such as flattery, guilt-tripping, fear-mongering, or emotional blackmail to get you to do what they want. They will play on your insecurities, your desires, and your fears to gain control over your decisions. To protect yourself from this type of manipulation, you must learn to recognize your own emotional triggers and develop strategies for managing your emotional responses. Practice emotional detachment, observe your feelings without judgment, and resist the urge to react impulsively. Develop a strong sense of self-worth and self-reliance so that you are not dependent on the approval or validation of others. The Machiavellian approach also emphasizes the importance of understanding human psychology. To detect hidden agendas, you must be able to read people's body language, interpret their microexpressions, and decipher their communication patterns. Learn to recognize the subtle cues that indicate deception, such as avoiding eye contact, fidgeting, or changing their tone of voice. Pay attention to inconsistencies between their words and their actions, as these can often reveal their true intentions. Study the principles of persuasion and influence so that you can recognize the tactics that others are using to manipulate you. Learn to identify common logical fallacies and cognitive biases so that you can avoid being misled by faulty reasoning. Another key element of the Machiavellian strategy is the art of strategic questioning. Rather than accepting information at face value, you must learn to ask probing questions that expose hidden motives and reveal underlying agendas. Ask open-ended questions that require more than a simple yes or no answer. Ask clarifying questions that seek to understand the reasoning behind someone's statements. Ask hypothetical questions that explore potential consequences and unintended outcomes. Be persistent in your questioning, but avoid being confrontational or accusatory. The goal is to gather information, not to start a fight. The Machiavellian observer understands that people often reveal their true intentions through their actions, rather than their words. Pay attention to how people behave under pressure, how they treat those who are less powerful than them, and how they respond to setbacks and challenges. Observe their patterns of behavior over time and look for inconsistencies or contradictions. Be wary of those who constantly seek to gain power or control, who are quick to take credit for successes, but slow to accept responsibility for failures, and who are always looking for ways to advance their own interests at the expense of others. Remember that hidden agendas are often driven by a desire for power, status, or financial gain. Understanding these underlying motivations can help you to anticipate people's actions and protect yourself from being exploited. Finally, the Machiavellian approach requires a willingness to be ruthless when necessary. This doesn't mean resorting to violence or unethical behavior, but rather being prepared to defend yourself and your interests, even if it means upsetting others or sacrificing a potential opportunity. Be willing to walk away from situations that feel exploitative or uncomfortable, even if it means disappointing someone you admire. Prioritize your own well-being above the approval of others, and never compromise your principles for short-term gains. The ability to detect hidden agendas is not a passive skill, but rather an active and ongoing process. It requires constant vigilance, critical thinking, and a willingness to challenge your own assumptions. By adopting a Machiavellian mindset, you can protect yourself from being manipulated and gain a deeper understanding of the complex social dynamics that govern human interactions. Ultimately, the goal is not to become a manipulator yourself, but rather to become a more discerning and self-aware individual, capable of navigating the social landscape with confidence and integrity. The best defense against manipulation is not cynicism, but awareness. It's about seeing the game, understanding the rules, and playing your own hand with skill and intention. History is replete with examples of empires and nations engaging in strategies designed to obscure their true intentions, often masking aggressive expansion or resource acquisition behind a facade of benevolence or mutual benefit. Consider the Roman Empire, which initially presented itself as a protector of its allies, gradually absorbing them into its dominion through a combination of military might, political maneuvering, and economic incentives. The promise of Roman citizenship, infrastructure, and security proved alluring, yet it concealed the empire's insatiable hunger for land, manpower, and tribute. The subjugated territories, initially treated as partners, eventually found themselves subject to heavy taxation and Roman law, their own cultures and identities gradually eroded. Similarly, the age of exploration witnessed European powers vying for control of overseas territories, often justifying their actions under the guise of spreading Christianity or civilizing indigenous populations. The reality, however, was a relentless pursuit of wealth, power, and strategic advantage. The exploitation of natural resources, the enslavement of local populations, and the imposition of foreign political systems were all masked by a narrative of progress and enlightenment. These historical parallels demonstrate that the manipulation of perception is a recurring theme in human affairs, whether it occurs on a grand scale between nations or in the more intimate settings of interpersonal relationships. The core principles remain the same. Identify a target's vulnerabilities, exploit their desires, and conceal your true intentions behind a carefully constructed narrative. Understanding the dynamics of warfare can also provide valuable insights into the detection of hidden agendas. Military strategy is often predicated on deception, misdirection, and the concealment of one's true objectives. Sun Tzu's Art of War emphasizes the importance of making your opponent believe the opposite of what is actually true, creating confusion and uncertainty. A feigned retreat, for example, can lure an enemy into a trap, while a well-placed rumor can sow discord and undermine their morale. These tactics are not limited to the battlefield. They are employed in all forms of competition, from business negotiations to political campaigns to personal relationships. The ability to read between the lines, to identify inconsistencies, and to question the motives of others is essential for navigating these complex landscapes. Consider the Trojan horse, a classic example of deception in warfare. The Greeks, unable to breach the walls of Troy, presented the Trojans with a seemingly harmless gift, a giant wooden horse. Unbeknownst to the Trojans, the horse was filled with Greek soldiers who emerged under cover of darkness and opened the city gates, leading to Troy's downfall. The Trojans' failure to recognize the hidden agenda behind the gift proved to be their undoing. This story serves as a cautionary tale, reminding us that appearances can be deceiving and that we must always be vigilant in assessing the motives of those who offer us gifts or assistance. The underlying principle is to consider not only what is being said or done, but also what is not being said or done. What is being concealed? What are the potential consequences? By asking these questions, we can begin to uncover the hidden agendas that may be at play. Moreover, the study of espionage offers a rich source of knowledge about the art of deception and the methods used to uncover it. Spies are masters of disguise, manipulation, and information gathering. They operate in the shadows, seeking to penetrate enemy lines and uncover secrets that could compromise national security. Their techniques range from cultivating relationships with informants to intercepting communications to planting disinformation. The ability to detect a spy requires a keen eye for detail, a deep understanding of human psychology, and a willingness to challenge assumptions. Counterintelligence agencies employ a variety of methods to identify and neutralize spies, including surveillance, interrogation, and the analysis of behavioral patterns. They look for inconsistencies in a suspect's story, unexplained wealth, and unusual contacts. They also rely on the principles of game theory to predict the behavior of potential adversaries and to develop strategies for countering their moves. The world of espionage is a constant battle of wits, a chess match played out in the real world with high stakes. By studying the tactics and techniques employed by spies and counterintelligence agents, we can gain a deeper understanding of the principles of deception and the methods used to uncover it. This knowledge can be applied to our own lives, helping us to protect ourselves from manipulation and to make more informed decisions. Recognizing microexpressions, subtle changes in body language, and inconsistencies in verbal communication can all be indicators of a hidden agenda. Learning to interpret these signals can provide valuable clues about a person's true intentions. Furthermore, understanding the psychology of motivation is crucial for detecting hidden agendas. People are driven by a variety of needs and desires, including the desire for power, status, wealth, recognition, and love. These motivations can be conscious or unconscious, and they can influence our behavior in ways that we may not even realize. When someone's actions appear to be inconsistent with their stated goals, it is important to consider what underlying motivations might be at play. For example, someone who constantly criticizes others may be motivated by a desire to feel superior, while someone who is always seeking approval may be motivated by a fear of rejection. By understanding these underlying motivations, we can begin to see through the facade and to understand the true agenda behind someone's actions. It's about recognizing that people rarely do things for purely altruistic reasons. There is often a hidden benefit, a personal gain, or a strategic advantage that they are seeking. This doesn't necessarily mean that their actions are malicious or harmful, but it does mean that we should be aware of their potential motives and be prepared to protect ourselves from being exploited. The key is to develop a healthy sense of skepticism and to avoid taking things at face value. Question everything, challenge assumptions, and always consider the potential consequences of your actions. By doing so, you can increase your chances of detecting hidden agendas and navigating the complex social dynamics that govern human interactions. Always remember that the most effective manipulators are those who can convince you that they have your best interests at heart. They are masters of flattery, empathy, and persuasion, and they can easily exploit your vulnerabilities if you are not careful. Be wary of those who shower you with praise or make promises that seem too good to be true. They may be trying to gain your trust in order to manipulate you later on. The human mind is a complex landscape, shaped by a multitude of desires, fears, and insecurities. These underlying psychological factors often drive our behavior in ways that are not immediately apparent. To effectively detect hidden agendas, we must understand the fundamental principles of human motivation. People are rarely entirely transparent in their interactions. They present carefully constructed personas, masking their true intentions behind a veneer of social acceptability. This is not necessarily a sign of malice, but rather a natural consequence of living in a society where self-preservation and social acceptance are paramount. Understanding the psychology of projection is key. Individuals often project their own undesirable traits or feelings onto others as a defense mechanism. By attributing their own negative qualities to someone else, they can alleviate their own feelings of guilt or shame. This can manifest as unwarranted criticism, suspicion, or even outright hostility. When someone is constantly accusing others of dishonesty or selfishness, it is worth considering whether they are actually projecting their own tendencies onto them. In these situations, the accusation itself can be a form of misdirection, designed to deflect attention from the accuser's own hidden agenda. Conversely, some individuals are driven by a deep-seated need for validation and approval. They may go to great lengths to please others, even if it means compromising their own values or interests. This desire for approval can be exploited by manipulative individuals who are able to provide the validation that they crave. These individuals might shower the approval seeker with praise, attention, or gifts in order to gain their trust and influence their behavior. The approval seeker, blinded by their need for validation, may be unaware of the manipulator's true intentions. Another powerful motivator is the desire for control. Some individuals have a strong need to dominate others and to exert their will over them. This can manifest as micromanagement, intimidation, or even outright aggression. Those driven by a desire for control often employ tactics such as gaslighting, guilt-tripping, and emotional blackmail in order to manipulate others into doing their bidding. They may also use information as a weapon, withholding it, distorting it, or using it to blackmail others. Identifying this need for control is essential for detecting a hidden agenda because it reveals the true objective behind their actions, not necessarily personal gain, but the satisfaction of wielding power over others. Fear is another incredibly potent driver of human behavior. People are often motivated by a desire to avoid pain, loss, or embarrassment. Manipulators can exploit these fears by threatening or intimidating their victims. They may threaten to reveal secrets, damage reputations, or even inflict physical harm. The fear of these consequences can be enough to compel victims to comply with the manipulator's demands. Recognizing when someone is attempting to instill fear in you is crucial. It is a clear indicator that they are trying to manipulate you and that you should be wary of their intentions. Furthermore, envy and resentment can also fuel hidden agendas. People who are envious of others' success or possessions may seek to undermine them, sabotage their efforts, or even steal from them. Resentment, on the other hand, can arise from feelings of injustice or mistreatment. People who feel that they have been wronged may seek revenge, even if it means harming themselves in the process. These emotions are often hidden beneath a facade of friendliness or indifference. However, they can manifest in subtle ways, such as backhanded compliments, passive-aggressive behavior, or malicious gossip. By being attentive to these subtle cues, we can identify those who may be harboring a hidden agenda driven by envy or resentment. Self-deception also plays a significant role in hidden agendas. People are often unaware of their own true motivations. They may rationalize their behavior, convincing themselves that they are acting out of altruism or good intentions, when in reality they are driven by selfish desires. This self-deception can make it difficult to detect hidden agendas, because even the individuals themselves may not be consciously aware of them. However, by paying attention to their actions, rather than their words, we can often discern their true intentions. Remember that cognitive biases, which are systematic patterns of deviation from norm or rationality in judgment, often come into play. For instance, the confirmation bias can lead people to seek out information that confirms their existing beliefs, while ignoring evidence that contradicts them. This can make them vulnerable to manipulation, as they are more likely to accept information that aligns with their preconceived notions, even if it is false or misleading. The halo effect, where a positive impression in one area influences opinion in other areas, can also be exploited. A manipulator who is charismatic or attractive may be able to gain trust and influence more easily, even if their actions are questionable. Finally, understanding Maslow's hierarchy of needs can provide valuable insights into human motivation. People are driven by a hierarchy of needs, starting with basic physiological needs such as food and shelter, and progressing to safety, love and belonging, esteem and self-actualization. Manipulators can exploit these needs by offering to fulfill them, or by threatening to deprive people of them. For example, someone who is insecure about their social status may be susceptible to manipulation by someone who offers them social acceptance or recognition. By understanding the psychology behind these needs, we can better understand the hidden agendas that may be at play. The detection of hidden agendas is not an exact science. It requires careful observation, critical thinking, and a deep understanding of human psychology. However, by being aware of the potential motivations that drive human behavior, and by paying attention to the subtle cues that betray hidden intentions, we can significantly increase our chances of seeing through the facade and protecting ourselves from manipulation. Always remember that the most effective defense against manipulation is awareness. The more you understand how people think and behave, the better equipped you will be to detect hidden agendas and to navigate the complex social dynamics that govern human interactions. Imagine this scenario. A mid-level executive, let's call him Mark, is vying for a promotion to vice president. He's competent, dedicated, and has consistently delivered results. However, he's up against another candidate, Sarah, who possesses a different set of skills and potentially a hidden agenda. Sarah isn't necessarily more qualified than Mark, but she excels at social maneuvering. She's built a strong network within the company, cultivating relationships with key decision makers, including the CEO. Now, observe their interactions in the weeks leading up to the promotion decision. Mark focuses on showcasing his accomplishments, presenting data, and highlighting his strategic contributions to the company's bottom line. He believes that his track record will speak for itself, and that the decision will be based purely on merit. Sarah, on the other hand, spends less time directly promoting her achievements and more time subtly undermining Mark. She does this through carefully crafted conversations, strategic alliances, and the dissemination of carefully chosen information. For example, during a casual conversation with the CEO at a company social event, Sarah might casually mention a project that Mark led, but subtly highlight a minor setback or a potential risk associated with it. She frames it as a concern for the company's well-being, rather than a direct criticism of Mark, making it difficult to challenge her motives. She might say something like, "I'm just a little worried about the long-term implications of the Alpha project. I know Mark put a lot of effort into it, and the initial results were impressive, but I'm not sure we've fully accounted for the potential impact on our sustainability goals." This seemingly innocent remark plants a seed of doubt in the CEO's mind, without explicitly attacking Mark's performance. She also employs the strategy of concerned trolling, expressing worries about Mark's workload or his ability to handle the pressures of a VP role. She might tell a senior manager, "I'm just concerned that Mark is taking on too much. He's been looking exhausted lately. I hope he's not burning himself out. The VP position requires a lot of stamina, and I wouldn't want him to be overwhelmed." Again, this is framed as a concern for Mark's well-being, but it subtly questions his fitness for the job. Furthermore, Sarah leverages her relationships with other influential employees to spread subtle narratives about Mark. She might confide in a colleague, "I heard Mark made some promises during the beta project that he couldn't keep. I know he had good intentions, but it created some friction with the sales team. I just hope he's learned from that experience." This kind of indirect communication is difficult to trace back to Sarah, but it can have a significant impact on Mark's reputation within the company. The key to Sarah's strategy is plausible deniability. She carefully avoids making any direct accusations or criticisms. Her comments are always couched in concern, couched in support, or presented as objective observations. This makes it difficult for Mark to defend himself, because any attempt to do so could be seen as defensive or insecure. He may feel the need to explain himself or justify his actions, but that only draws more attention to the very issues that Sarah has subtly raised. The emotional toll on Mark becomes significant. He senses that something is happening behind the scenes, but he can't quite put his finger on it. He becomes increasingly anxious and paranoid, questioning his own performance and his relationships with his colleagues. He starts second-guessing himself, wondering if he's truly ready for the VP role. His focus shifts from showcasing his strength to defending himself against vague and unsubstantiated allegations. This internal struggle affects his performance, making him appear less confident and less decisive in meetings. Meanwhile, Sarah continues to project an image of competence, support, and genuine concern for the company's success. She actively participates in team discussions, offering helpful suggestions and volunteering for tasks. She also makes a point of praising Mark's accomplishments, but always in a way that subtly reinforces her narrative. For example, she might say, "Mark did a great job on the Gamma project. He really stepped up and took initiative. It's just a shame that the market conditions weren't more favorable, because I think it could have been even more successful." This statement acknowledges Mark's efforts but subtly suggests that external factors, beyond his control, limited the project's success. This reinforces the idea that Mark may not be able to deliver results consistently, regardless of his effort. The end result of this complex interplay is that Sarah successfully undermines Mark's candidacy without ever directly attacking him. The decision-makers are left with a vague sense that Mark may not be the right fit for the VP role, without being able to articulate exactly why. They may perceive him as less confident, less reliable, or less capable of handling the pressures of the job. In contrast, Sarah is seen as a team player, a strategic thinker, and a leader who is genuinely invested in the company's success. She has subtly shaped the narrative in her favor, positioning herself as the more desirable candidate. This scenario highlights the importance of being aware of hidden agendas in the workplace. It demonstrates how subtle manipulation can be used to undermine a competitor's reputation and advance one's own career. Mark's mistake was to assume that the promotion decision would be based solely on merit. He failed to recognize the social dynamics at play, and he was unprepared for Sarah's subtle but effective campaign of manipulation. To avoid falling victim to similar tactics, it's crucial to be aware of the potential motivations of others, to pay attention to subtle cues and indirect communication, and to proactively manage your own reputation. It's also important to build strong relationships with colleagues and to create a network of support that can help you navigate the complexities of the workplace. Ultimately, the ability to detect hidden agendas is a valuable skill that can protect you from being exploited and enable you to succeed in your career. It is also critical to analyze the underlying reasons for Sarah's behavior. What motivates her to engage in such subtle and calculated tactics? Is it purely ambition, a desire for power, or perhaps a deep-seated insecurity that drives her to undermine others? Understanding the root causes of manipulative behavior can provide further insights into how to detect and counteract it. It may also be a result of past experiences, where such behaviors were rewarded or deemed necessary for survival in a competitive environment. Perhaps she learned early on that merit alone is not enough, and that strategic maneuvering is essential for advancement. Regardless of the specific reasons, it's clear that Sarah's behavior is driven by a complex interplay of psychological